Hi guys, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a couple of palette purchases that I've made recently, which I regret, why I regret them, and I want to talk a little bit about this consumer mindset that we have where we just have to get the new and shiny thing all the time, and it ends up being completely overwhelming for us. This is a topic which is on my mind a lot. It's a topic that I find myself talking with other people about quite frequently, and I thought that it would be interesting to just make a quick video about it. So if you are new here, hello, my name is Rachel and I'm a homeschooling stay-at-home mom. I really enjoy playing with eyeshadow, particularly colorful eyeshadow. I did film today's look and I'll link it in the description box down below for you. And I upload multiple videos a week. They're all eyeshadow related content. So if you like what you see and you want to see more, I hope that you will consider liking and subscribing before you leave. Let's get going with this topic. All right, so there are 3 palettes on my lap, which I have purchased recently, one of which was new. I did get it on sale, but it was still new. And the other 2 I bought secondhand for really deep discounts, and there's nothing wrong with that per se. I'm happy that I didn't pay full price for them, but at the end of the day, I still regret buying them. So let me talk about the new one first. This is the Alice in Wonderland palette from Sigma. Okay, I like the palette. I really like the color story. I like that it's light and fun and whimsical. It is pretty. It is fun to play with. You can get a lot of really neat looks out of this palette. I like that it goes from light to dark. Really, the palette itself and the color story covers all the bases of what I enjoy. I wanted to try Sigma for a while, and I was really tempted to get their Cinderella palette. But I thought, well, I don't know. I'm not sure if I like the formula. I hadn't tried the brand before. And the palette was pretty, but it didn't really get me excited. And then when they released the Alice palette, I thought, oh, here we go. Here's a color story that I can really get behind. So I bought it when it was on sale. And I do, like I said, I do like it. This was the first time I tried Sigma. I had no problems with the formula. The formula has worked well. I've always had good experiences with it. I feel like it gives me a nice refined look. So I don't necessarily want to get rid of the palette, although I'm not sure. I haven't decided. The reason that I regret it is because at the end of the day, this color story is not unique to my collection. I have all these shades elsewhere. There's not a single shadow in here that isn't also somewhere else in my collection. So I can easily get these exact same looks if I just shop my stash a little bit. And once I played with Sigma, I learned that while the formula is good and I have no complaints about it, it's just not my favorite formula. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I'm glad that I learned that it wasn't my favorite formula because that should have informed my future choices, right? Right? It should have informed my future choices, but it didn't because I still had my mind thinking about that Cinderella palette. And I would sit there and compare how the Alice palette looks next to the Cinderella palette and how the Cinderella palette looks next to other Sigma palettes that maybe I could get a different one and sort of bridge the gap because the Cinderella palette had the pretty purpley and blue tones and the Alice palette was more blue, green, red sort of berries. And I was just putting way too much mental energy into this comparison and why. It's not really worth that much mental space, right? It's just not. So over time, during all these comparisons, I found the Untamed palette. And I ended up grabbing the Untamed palette secondhand for $15, which was a great price. I think these palettes are $40 or $50. Like, this is still in its box. It was completely unused, untouched, totally new palette, not even swatched. And I got it for $15. And I'm not complaining about the price, I'm not complaining about the quality. You know what, let me just take this brush out. It's gonna fall out. Sorry about that. Anyway, this is the Untamed palette. It's really pretty. I haven't even used this on my channel. I have used it, but I haven't used it on my channel. It is a really pretty palette. It's got nice tones. It's got nice colors. Just like the Alice palette, it's got beautiful color payoff, pigmented, blendable, buildable. There's nothing wrong with this, but it does not excite me. I bought this because I thought that it would help bridge the gap between the Alice and the Cinderella, which are pretty similar. They're like sister palettes, you know. And they have a couple of tones which are very similar, especially in the neutrals. And I thought, well, hey, what if I got a palette from Sigma, same formula, but these are different neutrals. And it gives me the purples, and it gives me a deeper blue, and it gives me a couple more blush tones. And it's just, I think it's more complementary to the Alice without being quite as close. So it's more of a cousin rather than a sister. Yay, look at me. No, because at the end of the day, this is also not unique to my collection. It's just not special. It's just not, like, it's a good formula, it's a good palette, there's nothing wrong with it, I can't complain, but it's not special. So why did I spend $15 on it, plus a few bucks in shipping? Why did I do that? Because I had to scratch the itch you know? I didn't need to buy it. I didn't need to put the money out. It didn't bring anything new to my collection. And I have other palettes that have beautiful purple tones. If I really wanted to try to recreate one of the Cinderella looks I saw, I could have grabbed my Midnight palette from Beauty Bay, or my Serenity palette, or any number of other palettes that have a nice purple. I didn't need to go buy a whole new palette to sort of bridge that gap, and not even terribly well. It just was a totally unnecessary purchase. And the third palette that I want to talk about is the Nomad Iceland Fire and Ice palette. I like this palette. This one was also, I think I got it for $10 on a secondhand app. I like the palette. There's nothing wrong with it. I have no complaints. This was the first time I tried Nomad, and the colors are fun, and you can get a lot of cool looks from it. The formula's nice. No complaints about the palette. This is not a video talking about the palettes themselves. This is a video talking about my purchasing habits, because I didn't need this palette. I don't lie awake at night going, ooh, tomorrow I'm going to play with the Iceland palette and I'm going to do these 3 colors together. And I do react like that to some of my other palettes, but not this one. And I never reacted like that, even when I was considering buying it. I didn't look at the color story and start picking out all these different combinations. I do that with some palettes, and I didn't do it with this one when I was looking at it and considering, should I put money out to buy this palette? I should not have. There's nothing wrong with the palette. I cannot complain about anything except the fact that I purchased it when I shouldn't have. And it brings nothing new or unique or special or very different to my collection, because these shades can be found elsewhere. I can shop my stash and do any of these looks, any of them, except, I mean, I don't know, maybe like the minty or purple tone, or this one here is kind of cool, but is it so cool that I needed to buy an entire palette? It takes up space on my shelf, and it takes up space in my brain, and that's what I want to talk about. So the question is, why did I buy these palettes? Why do you buy palettes that you know you don't need, want, or deep down you know you're not even going to love them? They might get some use, but they're not going to be something that truly excites you. Why do you buy them? I can tell you why I buy them, because I've been analyzing it a little bit. It's kind of like a runner's high. We get this rush of endorphins, this spike of excitement and adrenaline when we get something new. It's retail therapy, really. Maybe you're feeling sad. Maybe you're annoyed with your spouse. Maybe your kids have been frustrating you. Maybe you've been sick. Maybe whatever. But we want that rush of new and shiny. Something new is coming, and it's exciting. And I think that's why I do it. Is that why you do it? Please tell me in the comments. Have you guys thought about this and analyzed yourselves a little bit and gone, why did I didn't need that? Like, why did I do that? You have a bit of buyer's remorse when the thing finally comes in and you look at it and you're like, oh, okay. I mean, there's not that excitement when it comes in, when it's finally in your hands and you can take your brushes and dip into the shadows and make beautiful looks and play with it. That thrill is gone, because it wasn't actually about the shadows or the palettes or expressing yourself or creativity. It was about the purchase. It was about that rush of endorphins to have something new. And what this leads to is we end up with too much stuff. And this isn't just eyeshadow related, but for the purposes of today's video, I'm talking about palettes. We end up with too much. I try to keep my collection curated, something that is manageable and joyful for me. But when I have palettes in my collection that never get used, I see them taking up space on my shelf. And they take up space inside my brain because I know that they're there, but they're not being used. And the very interesting thing that I realized today was it leads to guilt, for me personally, maybe not for you, but for me. And that's what I find most interesting. That's what keeps us captive, is the guilt that we have put money out for something. And if we don't use it, we know that it was a waste. We know that we shouldn't have done it, and that money was wasted. And what happens is I find myself using the palettes that excite me less, such as these 3 that I just showed you today, because in my head, I can't bear the thought that I wasted my husband's hard-earned money. I say my husband's hard-earned money. He works full-time outside of the home. He is the sole provider and breadwinner for our family. I take care of the house. I take care of the kids. We're not getting into a gender battle here, but what I'm saying is he's the one who brings in the money. So now I feel this burden of guilt to use the palettes that I bought, which I know I shouldn't have bought. And the counter side of that is that I'm not using the palettes that I really like, the ones that really excite me and thrill me. And those are the ones for which I have also put out money. But because they bring me joy, I don't feel guilty about them. So I end up using the ones that I like less in lieu of using the ones that I like more, simply because of the guilt I feel for having purchased the ones that I know I shouldn't have purchased in the first place. And I find this to be both incredibly frustrating and incredibly freeing. Once you sit and psychoanalyze a little bit and really examine why you behave in a certain way, it's very liberating. Now that I know what I'm doing and why, I can deal with it. And I can take a step back from the situation and say, okay, I know what is creating this impulse in my brain, so I can address it. I can properly process it and not react in the same way again. That is something that I'm trying to incorporate now as I look at other palettes that I have wanted, or other palettes that are being launched, and I go, oh, that's so pretty. Yes, it might be very beautiful, but what kind of reaction does it spark in me? Does it spark the this is new and shiny and I want it, I want it, I want it kind of reaction? Or does it spark creativity? Does it make me think of all the different looks I could come up with and the palettes that I could pair it with? How can I express myself within the reasonable parameters of this hobby and not overwhelm myself and not be reckless or unwise or frivolous? I don't want that. I don't want spending habits that make me feel guilty. I don't want spending habits that make my husband upset. I don't want to be bringing things into my life that literally clutter my home and figuratively clutter my brain. They clutter my mind. I can't focus when I'm burdened by the weight of items that I should never have purchased. This is very valuable to me. I hope that this is helpful to you guys. This is so informative because now I feel like I understand myself a little bit better on a new level, and I can look at a situation or a palette with a bit more wisdom, a bit more discernment, and say, okay, now Rachel, think this through. What value is this offering you? If it's simply chasing the thrill to get that endorphin rush, it is not worth it. I need to work through that because that is not worth squandering our family's finances. $15 here, $20 here, $30 here. It's still squandering. It's still wasteful. Bringing stuff into my life which doesn't need to be brought in. It's just unnecessary. I don't know. This video isn't really meant to be a tirade against purchasing or consumerism. It's just some thoughts I've been having lately because I talk to a lot of people about this exact issue. So many of us have lots of palettes and we get excited about the new releases and the new launches and the new color stories coming out and the new formulas, and this brand did this color story in this way. This brand did the exact same color story, but they laid it out differently in their palette, and which one's better? Which one should I buy? Well, what if you just buy neither of them? I know the brands don't want to hear that, but we need to be wise with our finances. We need to have control over ourselves and have control over our lives. And this is a problem that so many people are having. They're just feeling inundated by their eyeshadow palette collection. And I never thought that that could be a thing, but it totally is, because we're not pursuing the hobby or the creativity or the beauty and the joy that it can bring us. What we're chasing is the thrill of getting something new. Because as soon as it comes in, we're online shopping for something else new. We're not even using what we have, and that is a huge problem as far as I'm concerned. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you have an enormous collection and you take pride in completionism and you have every one of these Disney collabs and you have every one, like, maybe that's you. That's great. To each their own. I'm just talking about people who can understand where I'm coming from, and hopefully I haven't offended anybody, but I'm just kind of speaking off the top of my head here. It's been on my mind a lot, and I wanted to share with you how I found a little bit of resolution in this topic so that I can truly enjoy what I have and enjoy what I love. And first off, part with the things that bring me guilt, because, okay, maybe I did waste that money, but let me get it out of my life. I can make a few bucks back if I sell it, or I can donate it, or I can give it away, or whatever, but at least it's out of my life and is no longer a burden of guilt. And secondly, I can make better and more informed decisions going forward so that I don't bring that guilt back on myself. Hopefully that makes sense. Not trying to be a downer, I'm just airing some thoughts. I hope this video was helpful to you guys in any way. Do comment below. Let me know what you think. Maybe you guys can bring a different perspective to this that I haven't considered, and I appreciate your thoughts and your comments and your time. Remember to be nice. I'm trying to be nice, and we don't need to offend anybody or have any rudeness in the comments. It's just, this is something that a lot of people are dealing with and trying to figure out, and I wanted to share the little bit of insight that I had gleaned lately. So Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe if you did, and I'll see you guys again very soon in my next video. Bye!